Happy birthday, PS5. Aren't you happy that the whole family took the time to come back together and celebrate the— Wait, who the hell are you? Where did PS1 go? You're not getting out of this one, old man. Anyways, PS5, can you believe you're already 2 years old? They grow up so fast these days. I mean, just what did they feed you? No, seriously, what did they feed you? You're huge. Are you sure you're a PlayStation console? Well, I guess for a console, 2 years is maybe like 25 human years. I guess that means you're a full-fledged adult and a pioneer in the current generation of gaming. Surely, at this point in their lives, you'd expect a person to be living a successful life by now, right? Tons of amazing exclusive games, outselling your predecessors, you know, that kind of thing. You wouldn't expect PS5 owners to just play enhanced PS4 games and remasters of games that didn't need to be remastered, right? So let's take this moment to look back on the past 2 years of the PS5 and see everything it's accomplished. Let's start with some numbers. By this point in the PS4's life cycle, it had sold approximately 30 million units. Since PS5s were incredibly hard to get a hold of for a while, and still kinda are, you'd expect that demand for these things is soaring. And it is. At this point in time, the PS5 has sold approximately 25 million units. Oh wait, that's actually a little less than what the PS4 pulled. Well, the demand is obviously there, but the supply definitely isn't. The global pandemic impacted production on a lot of industries, and given that many people were stuck inside, video games were a great way to pass time during the lockdown. So yeah, there's been less supply recently, but much more demand. The direct competition, the Xbox Series consoles, have sold somewhere in the ballpark of 18 million units, so Sony is still ahead of the competition, at least in hardware sales. They even increased the price of the PS5 in certain regions back in late August, blaming the change on global economic pressures. Games are also starting to increase in price as well. And while this is a separate topic, I would just like to state for the record that I find this to be bullcrap. The PS5, much like the Xbox Series consoles, come in two different models, one with a disc tray and one without to make it more affordable. And consoles have been launching with multiple versions for a while, but the main difference was usually storage capacity, not whether it has a disc tray or not. But speaking of storage, I have to praise Sony for how easy it is to upgrade the SSD on the PS5, and for not using some dumb proprietary storage options which do nothing but cost more money. And they have done that in the past with their handheld systems. Of course, you can also expand storage with an external hard drive, but you can't run most PS5 games off of one as far as I know. Only PS4 and below, I guess. On the topic of games, the PS5 is backwards compatible with PS4 titles, as well as certain games from their Classics collection. Some PS4 titles have received PS5 enhancements, such as increased FPS, 4K resolutions, and faster loading times. But Sony has also started a trend of charging for these PS5 enhanced versions. Xbox offers Smart Delivery, a feature that simply installs the best version of a game available to your console, regardless of generation. It's something you don't think about, it just does its thing and you don't have to give a damn. Then you try downloading a game on the PS5, and you have to make sure it's the PS5 version of the game if you want to actually get the most out of your next-gen console. And apparently there's a surprising amount of PS5 owners that are still playing the PS4 version of Destiny 2 on their current-gen consoles. So this is something that's fairly easy to miss. Worst part is carrying over a save file from the PS4 version of a game, since they all work a little differently. In a worst-case scenario, you have to install the PS4 version, find and select some transfer save option, download the PS5 version, and then locate some download save option. Having to download two versions of the same game just to transfer your save file over is a huge pain in the ass. And not every game works like this, some of them make it easier for you, but it's still more annoying than it needs to be. Now, personally, I care a little more about playing actual next-gen games on my next-gen console, otherwise the PS5 might as well be the PS 4.5. And exclusive games are what draw me to a particular platform. I mean, if I could just play God of War on a more preferred platform, then I would. We'll talk about that later. Hey, let's take a look at the PS5 games you can only play on PS5. You know, games that are the only current PS5 true exclusives. We have Astro's Playroom, Demon's Souls, the remake, Destruction All-Stars, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Returnal, and I guess Last of Us Part 1 until it heads to PC at some point. A fairly common trend these days are timed exclusives. I mean, Sony makes more money selling a game on their own platform, since if they sold a game on Steam, then Valve does take a cut of that. But at the same time, Sony opens up the market, releasing games that are years old to a new demographic, and getting people to pay close to full price for these games, and in some cases, getting people to double dip and buy the game twice if they already owned it on PlayStation. It's pretty sneaky, Sony. But let's take a quick look at those true exclusives, while they remain exclusive, I guess. Astro's Playroom is a nice little platforming adventure that celebrates PlayStation's history and acts as a little tech demo for all the features that come bundled into the DualSense controller. Features that most games rarely make use of, which is a damn shame since the DualSense has a lot of cool things going on. I guess this is also my excuse to talk about the DualSense a bit. Astro's Playroom has a bunch of little mini games that make use of the various features on the DualSense, like this ball game where you swipe the touchpad to roll and can feel every little detail in the terrain you roll through, thanks to the haptic feedback. The haptic feedback in this controller is insane, and made by the same company that did HD Rumble for Joy-Cons. You can feel every tiny bump in the road, or feel the ball slip on ice. The attention to detail here is staggering. With the adaptive triggers, you can feel the tension of a bowstring, and the recoil of bullets. Even the motion controls can be fun to use in the right setting. Astro's Playroom may be on the shorter side, but you can tell a lot of passion went into this and the DualSense controller. I mean, it's all the little details, like the splashes of these raindrops that are actually PlayStation symbols, and all the little cameos celebrating PlayStation's history. Astro's Playroom is a great game, and the DualSense is a neat controller that will unfortunately never be utilized to its truest potential. Then there's Demon's Souls, the beautiful remake of the PS3 game that pioneered the Souls series, which went on to become its own great genre. The remake makes some significant visual improvements, as well as some quality of life changes to the gameplay. I really love this one. It's an amazing game, and just in terms of visual fidelity, this is by far the best looking Souls game ever. I mean, characters' faces actually talk and have expressions, which I get doesn't sound impressive, but given that most other games in the Souls series don't do this, you gotta give credit where credit's due. Destruction All-Stars is a battle arena destruction derby that has you trying to blast away your opponent's vehicles while also trying not to get blasted away yourself. It's actually pretty fun, but I don't have that much to say about it really. Kind of feels like a free-to-play game. It was actually free if you got it during the first month. It's just good vehicular mayhem, I guess, but like I said, I don't really have much to say here. I think this game would actually benefit a lot from just straight up going to a free-to-play game, as well as releasing multi-platform and introducing cross-platform multiplayer. I'm not sure how many people are still playing the game right now. It seems to take about an average of 5 minutes to even find a match, but I don't know. Fun enough game, I guess. Now, I'm a sucker for Ratchet & Clank, and Rift Apart is definitely no exception. The charming characters, creative weapons, beautiful worlds, and dynamic enemy encounters the series is known for is on full display in this most recent title. Although, it does make me a little sad to play because it reminds me we probably won't see any new Sly Cooper or Jak and Daxter games for a long time, if ever. At least they won't be forgotten. Returnal is an interesting one because it's a roguelike. The genre of game that's very common in the indie scene, but not so much the big budget AAA gaming scene, you know? I mean, Sony themselves published this. But stop me if you've heard this before. Each playthrough is sort of randomly generated. The game is difficult. You get upgrades that make you more powerful, but lose those when you die. There are permanent upgrades that persist throughout playthroughs. I mean, Returnal is fun, but it's not much of a pioneer or trendsetter in the roguelike genre. That being said, if you stick with it long enough, you'll start to see what makes it so special. Unfortunately though, many people might get turned off beforehand. Then there's Last of Us Part 1, the remake of the remaster that nobody needed. Don't get me wrong, I love the first Last of Us, but come on, nobody asked for this. It's also confirmed to be heading to PC later, so it's just a timed exclusive at the moment. Well, if the exclusives aren't doing it for you, then logically you'd choose a console based on the other services it can provide. And with the PS5, that would mainly be PlayStation Plus, which saw a bit of a revamp back in June of this year, merging the services of PS Now into PS Plus, as well as offering new tiers with various benefits. Some articles online would have you believe that this new revamp is making Sony lose subscribers, but the truth is that the number of PS Plus subscribers was actually declining before the revamp, and Sony's even making more money now from PS Plus than they were before. With lockdown restrictions lifted, I assume more people have less time to game, so they cancel their subscriptions, and the people that are currently subscribed are likely subscribed to a more expensive tier, meaning they pay more than they used to. But none of that changes the fact that their subscription numbers are still decreasing, and if that trend continues, I'd expect them to make some changes soon. But with all these new tiers and new features introduced into PlayStation Plus, you gotta wonder if any of it's worth it. Well, let's take a look. In the Essential tier, you have access to a few features, starting with SharePlay. This feature allows you and a friend to stream a game to each other. One of you can take control of the game, or you can play local co-op without having to be local. It's hit or miss depending on your connection to each other though, mostly miss in my experience. Next up is cloud storage, which allows you to upload saves to the cloud. I still feel like a certain amount of cloud storage should be free for everyone, regardless of subscription, but it is what it is, I guess. Then there's Game Help, and this one's kind of weird. You can pull up guides and videos on screen to help you win a game. You pay for this, by the way. This is something that's part of your subscription. In a world where everyone has a tablet or cell phone, this is probably one of the most useless things I've ever seen, and they make you pay for it. You know, if this wasn't locked to a subscription, I wouldn't knock on it so much since it's kind of a neat idea, but come on man. Online multiplayer. Yeah, if you want to play any game online, then you'll need PS Plus. Microsoft and Nintendo do the same. It's just the standard for the console market these days. Exclusive packs are just little bonus packs that have in-game currency or a new skin, mostly for free-to-play games or games that have microtransactions. Exclusive discounts, self-explanatory. You get better discounts for games as a PS Plus member. Monthly games. Every month there are new, free, technically not free, games to play as part of your subscription, but you only have access to them while you're subscribed. And last in the Essential tier is the PlayStation Plus collection. I think it's like 20 games or something like that. Yours to play as a PS Plus member. Pretty good games here, and that's pretty much it for the Essential tier. The next tier is Extra, which gives you access to everything in the Essential tier, as well as the game catalog and Ubisoft Plus Classics. A collection of hundreds more games for you to play as a PS Plus subscriber. Now, I'll be honest though, the collection of games leaves something to be desired. There's a lot of great games to play here, but it still doesn't feel like it's quite as robust or on the same level as Xbox Game Pass. And I guess that all depends on the games you want to play. I already own or have played through some of the more interesting games on offer here, so I was a little disappointed, which just leaves the Premium tier, granting everything from the previous tiers as well as some new goodies like cloud streaming. If you're too lazy to download a game, you can stream it from the cloud. Performance not guaranteed, as you may experience stuttering, lag, drops in resolution, freezing, and disconnections, depending on how good your internet connection is. I myself don't have the greatest internet, but on a good day, streaming a game works surprisingly better than you might think. It's just unfortunate that some games can only be streamed, namely PS3 titles. It's awesome that you can even play a PS3 game on your PS5, but I wish they would find some way to just port them over instead of taking the lazy way out. Now you also get access to the Classics catalog in this tier, an assortment of PS1, PS2, and PSP games available to download on your PS5. Now it also includes like remasters and the PS3 games in this collection, but like I said, you have to stream the PS3 titles. Now the Classic collection also leaves something to be desired, like Ape Escape 3, my favorite Ape Escape, huh? Where'd that one go? But it does give you access to some rewind features and save states in some games, so that's kind of neat. There are some cool games here, but it really just needs a little bit more. I mean, the PS3 and Vita systems had access to way more classic titles than what we have on offer here. Anyways, lastly is the game trials. Demos. These are glorified demos of games. You get to play a game for a certain amount of time, and it's different for each game. Some are 1 hour, others 5, most are around 2. If Sony's refund policy was more like Steam, we wouldn't even need this. Even Meta with their VR headsets has a similar refund policy to Steam, where you purchase a game, and as long as it's within 14 days of purchase and you've played less than 2 hours of the game, you can get just a guaranteed refund. Sony does not let you do this. In fact, if you've even started the download for a game that you bought, that's it. You can no longer get a refund. That is how bad their refund policy is. I mean, maybe these game trials would be better if they let you play a game before release, or if most demos were closer to the 5-hour mark instead, but damn, this is just insulting.
Well, tough rocks, pal.
PlayStation Plus Premium subscription.
Tell me, you didn't pay money for this.
Overall, if you want PS Plus, then maybe dip into the Extra tier if you want a neat collection of games to play. Otherwise, I'd probably stick with just Essential for when you want to play online with friends. That just leaves us with the future of the PS5. Production seems to be ramping up on units. It's much easier to get a PS5 now than it was a year or two ago, but hopefully the supply will catch up with demand sooner rather than later. might get a little tight around the holiday season. Demand always rises a bit around that time of year. And there are some neat exclusive games coming out in the near future, like Final Fantasy 16, Spider-Man 2, that Wolverine game. Well, who knows how long these games will remain true exclusives? A year, maybe 2 or 3, maybe just a few months. Then again, you can take a look at something like Final Fantasy VII Remake, which was only a timed exclusive for 1 year. Yet despite that, it took 2 years for the game to make it to PC, and it still has not come to Xbox. So who knows, you just can't really trust anyone with these games. It depends how successful they are, I guess, and what contracts are worked out behind the scenes. Of course, we can't forget there's also PSVR 2 to look forward to, and whatever interesting exclusives it brings with it. Unfortunately, it costs as much as the damn PS5 itself. I guess it's overall still a little cheaper than a decent gaming PC and a high-end VR headset, but it's really going to come down to the exclusives and extra features for all that. Overall, the PS5's future is an odd one. Developers are still making games cross-generation for a little bit, since not everyone has been able to make the upgrade to current-gen hardware, and many of the exclusive titles may just make their way to PC a few years after release. But then there's no guarantee of which games will remain true exclusives or just timed exclusives. And in terms of true exclusives, there are some decent games on offer, but it's really not much yet. The new tiers of PS Plus are a step in the right direction, but it may be a tad overpriced for what's actually on offer here. Some of these features are things you just shouldn't have to pay for in the first place. And the games on offer are pretty great, but the collection can use a bit of filling out, you know? With the PS5 itself increasing in price for several regions, and new games also hiking their prices up, many people are probably just waiting for a good deal on the PS5 or maybe even a fancy bundle. Heck, it's not hard to imagine a mid-life cycle revision next year. A PS5 Slim, if you will. I mean, the PS4 Slim released about 3 years after the original model did. I'll be honest with you. The only reason I have a PS5 is because I was lucky enough to snag one on day one. And then I saw how hard of a time people were having trying to get one, and I just didn't want to give mine up. Even though there weren't too many interesting games to play. And 2 years later, and not much about that statement has changed. At least when we're talking about games that I could have just played on my PS4, you know? Still, I've had a lot of fun with my PS5 these past 2 years, and I'm looking forward to the games we'll play in the future. Here's to you, PS5. Happy birthday. And if you enjoyed the video, thank you. I appreciate you and everything you do. Ciao.